Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm working on my 2009 C4S, and this car has all-wheel drive. Uh, I was changing the brakes, and I noticed that my bump stop uh, here on the passenger side was broken. So, uh, not an expensive part, but it's a lot of labor to get to it. So, just to go over this car, it has PASM, which is the Porsche Active Suspension Management System. So basically, what that means is it has a normal mode for ride and then a sports mode where the suspension gets a little bit stiffer, a little bit more responsive. Let's say you're on a track. The suspension would give you a more planted feel on that smooth surface that you would find on a track. Here on the roads in New Jersey, probably wouldn't have the car in sport mode too often with potholes and things like that. It would be a little bit more jarring, let's put it that way. So the point of all that is on the top of the strut, there is an electrical connection. There's a wire which goes into the PASM system. When you press sport, uh, it's going to, let's say, send an electrical signal into the strut and change the firmness of the shock. Um, the fluid has some particles. I'm sure you could read about that if you're interested in it. But bottom line is, when you want to, let's say, loosen the strut, the nut on there, there's a wire going through the middle of the strut. So it's something we have to deal with the more advanced suspension that this car has. So basically what I'm going to do is, while I have the car on the ground, I'm going to remove the axle nut. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I need to take the strut out of the car. So basically I need to take the strut, swing it out. And in order to get that range of motion that I need to take the axle out of the wheel carrier. So there's three 15mm nuts on the top of the strut. I've loosened those. What I'm going to do is loosen this castle nut. It's 340 foot-pounds, which, basically, here's my breaker bar. I'm not going to be strong enough to do this with just this, so I'm going to use the leverage of my jack handle. Once I've done that, once I've removed or loosened the castle nut, then I'm going to remove the brake caliper. I'll put that on a box. I'm going to remove the ball joint that attaches to the tie rod. I'm going to loosen the lower control arm. So again, these things give me the range of motion that I'm going to need to remove the strut. So basically, just going to go through very quickly and take you from there. So here is my, okay, all right, so able to get that loose. So I'm going to take that nut off, then I'll jack the car up, and then I'll work on the two 10mm hex bolts that hold the caliper on. I'll support the caliper, and I'll take you through once I get that done. Okay, here we're at the top of the strut. So this is the, let's say, the cowl of the front of the car here. So this is the passenger side strut. We have the three 15mm nuts. This is the PASM cable, so I've unconnected that. And I'm going to go underneath the car now, and just going to leave these on loosely as I take off the other components. Hi, so I'm going to continue, let's say, taking the required parts off. So first I'm going to, next part I'm going to take off is the brake calipers here. So let's see, got that loose. And this is an H10 bolt here. Okay, so that's one. And I've already taken off the ABS sensor and the brake pad wear sensor. They're 10 millimeter nuts and bolts, each one of them. And there's a fixed line for brake fluid, so you want to be really careful when we're moving the caliper out of the way. Okay, so I've got that out of the way. Next thing I'm going to do is the tie rod end has a ball joint. Just gonna got that knot off. Okay, so I had pre-loosened that. So I got the that ball joint off. There's also a 18 millimeter bolt. Oh no, 16 millimeter bolt with a 18 millimeter nut. Got that. That holds the strut in this in the wheel carrier. So I've loosened that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the wheel in a controlled way. I have the nuts on the top, those 3 15 millimeter nuts. I'm just going to lower this. Okay, so I've been able to swing the strut suspension out. There's the 16 millimeter bolt with an 18 millimeter nut. So let's just get that off here. Okay, so I got that out. And now pull it out. It's out. So now in order to get this nut off, there's this washer which I need to hold while I release this nut. So that'll be the next thing that I'm working on the bench. Hi, so it's got the strut with the new bump stop and bellows, and I also needed a new strut mount. The car's 11 years old, and the old strut mount was it was actually torn up. So, you know, you really, when you're working on the car, you wanted to do the job right. It would have been the wrong thing to do to put the old strut mount back on the car. So basically now, let's say the reverse of the removal process, I'm going to put the strut mount back into the carrier for it. So it's really a very clever design. So basically slides into this wheel carrier. In order for me to have the range of motion, everything stays disconnected. So I'll get that back up under the car. There's 3 15 millimeter nuts, which I'll put on loosely. Then I'm going to try and get the axle back in. And then I have the tie rod ball joint, which will need to go installed. And this drop link, the drop link for the sway bar, will need to get installed. And of course the lower control arm, which I had loosened so I can get that range of motion, I'll need to tighten that up. And it's very important when you're, let's say you have bushings, you have to put some load on it. So in other words, I have to simulate as if the car was on the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the, let's say the axle here, and I'll know if I have, let's say, alignment, if the drop link should just slide into the sway bar. Then I'll know I have the car at approximately the right or appropriate ride height as if it was on the ground, and then I'll snug things up and take it for a shop to get a wheel alignment. So I'll put everything back together, then I'll let you know how things are going. Hi, so I've got the strut in. Yeah, I took on this repair. When I was changing the brakes, I noticed that the bump stop that was in the passenger side was broken. So, you know, you really, when you're working on your car and you find things that aren't right, you know, it's good to address them, because that's how you keep small problems from turning into big problems. If, let's say with the strut, if it doesn't have the bump stop, you can get dust into, let's say, the piston. Of course, in the roads that we drive on here in the Northeast, you're going to have potholes. So the suspension traveling, let's say, past where it should, is there's a strong likelihood that could happen. So the bump stop is not an expensive part, but an important part in taking care of your suspension. And you know, when I did the when I removed the strut from the mount, this car is 11 years old. This mount is really needs to be changed. The rubber in here, it's a little bit perished. You can see some daylight, so it really needed to be changed. And you know, you don't want to put old parts back on because that's going to be an expensive repair. So I just took care of that now. So I just want to, I hope you found the video helpful, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.